This matchup is so boring, I genuinely didn't even write up an introduction for this set of reviews. Go watch Biffweed's video. We're going to be talking about every single Avatar episode. I can't say Avatar The Last Airbender because Korra is different. It's Avatar Legend of Korra. Let's just get this over with.
Oh ho ho! In the official behind-the-scenes extras of the Avatar Book 2 DVD, we found this. Toph can feel the earth, even if it isn't connected to the ground.
I fucking shit!
Oh my god!
Somebody get me a motherfucking table to flip!
Gaara vs Toph is an embarrassment. Okay, let me rephrase. Gaara vs Toph's fight and conclusion is an embarrassment. The analysis is really good. Now, I know people are going to be pissy because of the stats given being wrong, but I will defend the stats thing against people who support this episode as being wrong later, just wait. The analysis is actually fantastic. The flow is good, the comedy is on point, there are a lot of jokes that I both remember and enjoyed, and jokes that I forgot but made me laugh in the moment when I heard them again. I like the music choices, but Atler and Naruto have great music, so no shit. Boomstick lampshading the sillier parts of their series and stories is a lot of fun, and it doesn't feel like it's attacking either. It feels more like just a friend pointing out something while watching a thing with you, as opposed to something overly harsh towards the character born from spite. There's even what seems like an improvised bit from Ben and Chad at the end of Gaara's analysis that seems to almost have them break into laughter mid-recording that I just find so charming and lovable. I can't get mad. I can't wait for the fight to be this good. This fight is atrocious and generally one of the worst things I've sat through in all my years of this show. Okay, that's a bit harsh. There are much worse, but let me just explain why this fight pisses me the fuck off. And by pisses me the fuck off, I mean makes me play up my anger for comedic effect and just leaves me bored and dissatisfied. Problem 1. So Toph, right? She's a bender. She can do so much with the earth. She can mold it to her will, reshape it and change its density. She could do shit like turn the sand in Gaara's gourd to stone and stab him in the back with it, or alter his attacks to turn them into stone as it approaches and throw them back at him before they ever reach her. Stuff like that which would be really cool and creative. In this fight, all she does is make some rocks come out of the ground, summon some pillars, and make some spikes come out. The only other thing she does is occasionally make a little bit of sand harder. It is the least inspired shit they could have possibly done, and compared to Gaara's sand being animated very well and fluid, it's really jarring. And that's not all that's wrong with her. Toph is never shown as someone who disrespects other people's culture and beliefs to my memory. She's abrasive, but I can't see her being told she's entered Sacred Gown for no reason and just picking a fight. And then there's shit like Gaara saying he needs time so he encases himself in a sphere. We never learned what time it's for. Is it for the sand tsunami? Well, it can't be, because we saw in the analysis just how much sand he has in there. And it's way more than just this. Could it be for his sand armor? Well, that'd be pretty lame, seeing as it breaks the moment Toph gets through the sphere in one of the only examples of her bending being used in a fun way. Why? Gaara gets this really cool line about removing Toph's arms, but in doing so, he gives her time to free herself.
You need your arms to control the earth.
And then it's directly contradicted later when Toph just comes up behind him with some pillars, not moving her limbs at all to bend them, but seeming to just manipulate them with her fucking mind. She throws a bunch of rocks that Gaara blocks, then suddenly appears behind Gaara and charges to him. We break the 180 rule as he's back to blocking rocks for some reason. What? Where did these come from? Why does he throw a sandblast to the left, which then loops around and swings to the right to hit Toph? This shot is painfully stupid and bad. Okay, but I do like Gaara's line before the sand tsunami, and the attack itself is animated terribly. But then Toph pulls out this metal wire, which he uses twice in the fight. I have never seen this before because I've never watched Korra. It's never mentioned in the analysis, it's not in the conclusion, it's never addressed. It is literally her pulling out the big-lipped alligator from the big-lipped alligator moment. And it wouldn't be as annoying if this wasn't absolutely fucking essential to her survival, as it literally allows her to get out of Gaara's big fuck-off tsunami and his bigger fuck-off sand coffin. Which, by the way, are the only times in this fight that Gaara is at an appropriate level of scale for what he's shown to be able to do in Shippuden. But oh no, we can just have Toph survive with this thing we never mentioned before. It's not like we could have her metal bend in some other way. Like, I don't know, if she pulled the gold dust out of Gaara's sand and started trading blows with him in a way similar to how his father did against him. Something that would be a cool utilization of metal bending. And then there's the death. In concept, this is awesome. In execution, we get one cool shot of the armor hardening in her arm, then it pans upwards, we get a green screen blood effect accompanied by the sound of a tomato splattering to imply something brutal. I guess I can live with that. But then it's ruined because we're later showing the body completely undamaged in the next shot. She didn't crush him to death. Okay, did she impale him inside by making spikes appear in there? Well, no, there's no concave indications of where the spikes would be. Where did the blood come from? What is this? And the conclusion is an absolute embarrassment. The only argument truly given is that Toph can control Gaara's sand, and that she can see sand that isn't connected to the earth. which holy shit, what a tide turner. It's not like Rock Lee could do that and he still got his ass kicked. Wow, all it takes is seeing Gaara's sand to be able to avoid it. Can't believe how lucky Gaara was to only ever fight fucking blind people in Naruto who couldn't see it. Simply stunning argument. This is why I think the analysis itself should be forgiven by people saying Gaara's death ruins it all. The analysis agrees with you. It puts Gaara at village busting bomb level and faster than sound, while Toph has no evidence whatsoever that she can get past that faster sound defense. Genuinely a travesty. This would be a 2 or 3 out of 10 episode for the sheer amount of fail, but I'm feeling generous, because the analysis was so fun and entertaining. The amount of puns that Boomstick drops at the end are so good. I'm giving it a 4. Reluctantly, and not a high one, but still a 4. I don't want to hear you all crying that in the comments, oh, but Toph won, so it's such a bad episode. I don't care that Toph won. The episode is shit regardless of that, but I enjoyed the analysis enough to give it a bit of a benefit of the doubt. Let's just be glad this episode directly confirms that Boomstick is not a
She may be 17, but I can wait a year. Or move to Alabama, whatever.
God damn it.
Little! Who are you calling a pipsqueak, you stupid hairless kid? I'm still growing! How's this for small? Nice try, shorty! At least I'm taller than you.
The first analysis starts with the Captain Planet reference about as humorous as an unfunny simile. And I'll be honest, Aang's analysis is just... God, it's weird. I don't know, it feels like the discussion of the story was unreasonably rushed, and I don't know, it's hard to explain. What isn't hard to explain is that the very quirky music cutaway gag with a joke so fucking obvious I could predict it 7 years in advance is a shit joke and should have been cut. There's another cutaway too, which is also painfully unfunny. Overall, Aang's analysis is fucking shit. It's dog shit. Genuinely, this analysis is a respect thread. It doesn't feel at all like there was a lot of research done via watching the show. It sounds like someone used a respect thread and just that. They took a summary of the plot from Wikipedia, look up who taught him what, went to a respect thread, read off what can be done, no pizzazz, no humor, no nothing. This is a whole other level of bad. And I would take a fun and entertaining analysis with barely any specific numbers over a boring, droll, unfunny as a cemetery analysis with just a ton of numbers and shit. Holy hell. And you know, Ed's is also weird. The setup for the world of Fullmetal Alchemist also sounds like a Wikipedia article, and the build up to Ed feels less dramatic and cool and more, oh by the way, here's Ed. Ed's analysis is less written weird and more, there are just times where it feels like more line reads when needed.
Create ammonium gas from ammonium nitrate, assuming this chimera has a similar bite force to that of a real lion.
It might just be me, but those pauses feel unnatural and don't flow well at all. It's just painfully slow at points. And even the ending line from Boomstick feels like it's not meant to be the end, the delivery is just off. And yeah, once again, this is just a respect thread. Wow, the analysis is one of the worst in the show's history. It hasn't got any sleazy moments and the versus stuff is all there, but the characters don't feel like characters, they feel like numbers and functions. It feels like whoever wrote this doesn't actually care about Aang and Edward, they're just writing out what the researchers gave them out of obligation and for a paycheck. I can't be sure if that's the case, and I hope it wasn't, but this is just unfun, actively unfun to watch. I don't like this analysis at all. And I know that the argument is going to be like, oh, this is a show about versus stuff. Of course it's going to be like a respect thing. No. Because basically every other episode does not feel like a respect thread. There is no excuse. And the fight is... Oh, you want to talk about not giving a shit about the characters? Oh boy, let's get to the fight! So I know nothing about Edward Elric, right? I never watched Fullmetal Alchemist, even though I do fully intend to someday. I came out of this fight thinking that the character was nothing but short jokes. Genuinely. No ironic joke, like no bullshit. That was my impression of the character. I was later told by several people that's not the case. And this confused me, because Edward has 2 lines that aren't related to his size. Classic misdirection, and not believing his alchemic circle worked. What I got from this episode was that Edward Elric is an annoying, loudmouth, shouting asshole with all the character of the first episode Aster from Black Clover, where his personality is screaming, and all he cares about is his height. I got that he's a hot-blooded and hot-headed, irrational bastard prone to misunderstanding everything. The kind of character I can't fucking stand as a protagonist when not framed as intentional flaws that they have to overcome. Basically, Edward in this fight is a nostalgia critic and not in the ironic enjoyment way. I have since been told that Edward is actually a good character. Mystifying for sure, almost as if Death Bell's knowledge of the character was about as strong as mine. Aang, meanwhile, for the most part, is better. He tries to pacify Ed by coming up with positives to what Ed is overreacting to. He genuinely seems really worried and apologetic when he thinks he's killed Ed, and he comes off as for the most part just a nice person who doesn't want to fight. Then the ending happens. Aaang kills Edward, blatantly murders him, and says one of my least favorite lines in any episode, "You left me no choice." This is the ultimate indictment of how little they give a shit about Aang's character. Aaang is a pacifist who refuses to kill. He spends the entire third book trying to find a way to get around killing Ozai, wanting to know of an alternative path that doesn't require him to break his morality and betray his religion as a monk with bloodshed. Ozai is responsible for more deaths than anyone in Aang's world. He is personally responsible for untold slaughters, oppression, and sieges on countless civilizations across the world of Avatar, and Aaang didn't want to kill him. To Aaang, Ed was just some kid that got angry about his height. And Aaang says that he was left with no choice? Consider that Aaang previously had just deleted his chance to use alchemy. He outright says to point it out, no more clappy magic, as if to outright identify Ed as having lost his ability to alchemize. Is that a word? Probably. Which we can tell because he had to draw that circle. Aaang could probably imply the circle is responsible for what happened just now because of Ed having never drawn one prior. Ed literally had no other abilities or tactics to employ after Aaang broke out of those pillars, which mind you was the first attack Ed landed in the fight. Yeah, the closest he got was putting a box around Aaang, and Aaang gets out of that with ease. Every other hit in this fight was Ed's alchemy blowing up in his face twice and losing his arm. Oh, and Aaang getting off this combo of hits on him. And this combo of hits on him. I guess if you count this explosion hitting Aaang, that would count as a hit, but that's the only on-screen instance of, Aaang being hit then. We don't even see the stone pillars hitting him. He literally is lying on the floor and they miss! Good job, guys. And yeah, this is awful, pure character assassination. And I don't want any of you motherfuckers to say the characters in the fights don't matter. If I wanted Aaang for his power set, there's no reason I'd want Ed versus Aaang over, say, Korra or Kyoshi. No, I'd want Aaang for his personality and character, what I like about him. Because otherwise, why bother requesting Aaang if all you care about is the power set? And even then, what they did to Edward is even worse, devolving him into just the embodiment of micro-penis energy completely unironically. And I know people are going to say, oh, it's Death Battle, it has to end with a kill. Frame the kill as either an accident, like Aaang hits him a bit too hard, staying true to his character by having him react to it afterwards, or just don't have Aaang respond to it, because no response is better than a bad response. And let's look at what actually happens in the fight. It's not entirely bad. I like Ed using the wall to defend attacks. I really like Aang's waterbending being redirected with Ed's alchemy and Aaang using heat to block the return water. That's the most interesting trait of abilities. There's some blade to stick fighting that's well animated, but aside from that we have Ed using alchemy to attack the ground, but Aaang doesn't use his earthbending to counter it, he just jumps. Aang's only earthbending is in fact throwing these stone heads, and his only waterbending is the previously mentioned good bit. And while it matter, his only firebending is this blast and this blast. 2 blasts of fire, nothing interesting. And as much as I want to like this misdirection scene, I can't get over how the misdirection is pointless as Aaang has plenty of time to realize what's happened as Ed stands there as the fog clears, and blatantly says he's been misdirected, then makes the cage. Aaang only gets stuck there because he's an idiot. This is the equivalent of someone screaming before attacking you by surprise. Instead, Aaang could have been put in this box immediately as he saw the goofy face on the ball, then Ed could say this, but no, that would make sense. And I can't get over how they say, oh, Aaang can't fly in the analysis, but then show him flying with the air ball. That's straight up flying. And Ed waits to right near the end to question Aang's alchemy. I guess it makes sense that he'd react to firebending weirdly, given it's the only kind of bending that can generate its element from seemingly nowhere, which alchemy can't do. But at least to my knowledge, I've also heard Roy Mustang does something similar, so what the fuck do I know? They didn't react to this previous instance. Yeah, that's because it wouldn't fit the scene, but maybe then don't have this be the firebending, then you fucking astrophysicists. Have him firebend earlier to Ed's surprise. The only other bit of this fight I like than the previously mentioned waterbending bit is Ed drawing an alchemic circle. It's the one time it feels like his character is not a brain-dead moron, and I've already explained why this misdirection is brain-dead stupid, don't try to argue that makes him seem smart. Him drawing the circle after losing his arm is the most intelligent he gets, using alchemy in a way that we established previously in the episode he generally doesn't. It makes him come off as a bit more resourceful and intelligent. But then Aaang goes Avatar, and while the music for this scene is really solid and well done, literally all that happens is Aaang flies into the air as elements coalesce around him, and he throws one attack and that's it. This episode is embarrassing. Genuinely embarrassing. 3 out of 10. I'm dead serious. I like Gaara vs Toph more than this episode, because Gaara vs Toph had a good analysis at least, even if the fights are equally dogshit. But, credit where it's due, Emily Fajardo does a good job with Aang's voice. Yeah? That's the best credit I'm giving this episode. Dislike it that much. Whew. Oh, I forgot to mention at the start, Zuko vs Todoroki, not doing that. I've already reviewed that in my Season 7 retrospective, which you can go watch. I don't like it either, meaning we are now going to go into Korra vs Storm, hoping we finally get the fabled good Avatar episode.
Where am I? Who are you? Answer me!
Boomstick offhandedly mentioning that Wiz says he struggles to make a conscious thought is probably the most reaction a joke this season has gotten out of me, and I don't know how to feel about that. Actually, the Storm analysis surprisingly got 3 reactions out of me, which I genuinely didn't expect. There was what I just said, the cutaway gag, which is at the right level of absurdity for me to enjoy, and Wiz having asked twice if Boomstick got his pun, and being hit with a big fat no. I like those jokes. Storm's analysis? You're good. I like that. Korra's, on the other hand, I'm less fond of, and yes, for the exact fucking reason you think, because I even brought up in my last review, the fact that they drop calcs almost immediately. My problem here is, this never works. Steven Universe had the most reason to include it due to that being a necessary part of the backstory, but they do it before even mentioning his name. Goku Black never even gets name dropped as Goku Black until after his thing, and Korra's, well, it just happens out of nowhere. We're in the middle of hearing them setting up Korra's story, and then it goes straight to, not only is she an expert, and I'm just having to pause and to go, what? Once again, this sort of writing actively turns me off from wanting to watch what they're talking about, because it implies that that was all the story there was. That is the issue of Korra's personality being cut off as she's hot-headed and likes being the Avatar and fights people. And the issue is, I know that there are people who are going to say yes, that's all she is as an attempt to demean her character and series. What are her motivations? What are her goals? What about her makes her an interesting character? Thithbal's analysis isn't just there to get the verse stuff on the table, it's also there to educate the viewer on the character, and a good analysis like TJ Combro or Mitsuru Kirijo's can make me more interested in the character and want to check out their series. A bad analysis though does the opposite, and that's what this one did. Yes, they bring up more things at the very end, but that's at the end. I'm already kind of checked out of Korra at that point. The thing I was talking about anyway is just dropping calcs. And I've seen the counter arguments to this problem, and it'd be weirder to bring up a feat than bring it back up later. The only time they've done this where that applies is Steven. Goku Black did not have to have the exact specifics of the fight between Goku and Beerus mentioned. It could have been brought up later, and in this case, Korra having the ability to manipulate water and Aang having this waterbending feat, they are not intrinsically linked. This could be separate. You can bring up Korra can manipulate water, then later say that Aang has this feat, because what matters is... for God's sake, I'm getting a headache. Like I said last review, Mob's analysis would not be improved if we just had Mob brought up and then immediately went to the feat of his psychic powers just because those feats are related to his psychic abilities. Goku had Ki brought up, but they didn't immediately jump into his most impressive Ki scaling. Reverse Flash has the negative Speed Force brought up, but they don't immediately go and calculate Dwarf Star Punch in the same sentence. They don't bring up Dio's Stinger Eyes and Vampire's Superhuman Nature and then calculate those immediately either. Just because you bring up the existence of a power doesn't mean you have to immediately go and calculate and scale how strong that power is, instead of talking about what it can do and then moving on to the next thing. If the series was always like this, maybe I just accept that as a status quo, but when this is inconsistent, it just bothers me, especially when they try to make the Avatar state seem impressive by bringing up a feat that's 1,000 times weaker than base Korra scaling. What part of this am I supposed to find impressive? I just think, wow, so you do think the Avatar state gets weaker or something? Or is this not meant to be an Avatar state feat and just don't give us anything about the Avatar state to make it seem impressive? Why? You could have at least brought up the Kyoshi thing for the Avatar state to at least try to make it seem like it's at all an impressive thing. Instead, it has less scaling in this episode than base Korra. Oh god, I just remembered. It is possible there's going to be some bastard going, oh, you asked for more calc with Zuko vs Todoroki, but then we give it to you, and you like it, and you don't like it now? And it's like, bruh, are you fucking serious? Do we need to explain it to you like you're like this smooth brain, little walnut brain? Give us more calcs than nothing, but don't give them to us in a way that interrupts the pacing. There's too much and too little of something, I swear to fucking god. At least the speed thing is naturally flowing. Thankfully, the ending of her analysis is relatively okay, aside from the fact they interrupted just for that megaton feat. They actually go into a character. It is a bit late for me to give a damn because they switched my brain to the Versus side afterwards. I just don't like Korra's analysis, but the funny thing is, it's probably like the second best analysis for an Avatar character. Like, I can't even get too upset with what I just had to sit through. At least this one had some story to it. And while it did manage to have a cutaway gag so predictable my 70-year-old dementia-riddled grandmother who doesn't speak English could see it coming, at least it wasn't as dreadful as that episode's 2 analyses. I actually like Storm's too. This isn't even the worst outing of the season. Though it does strike me as odd how Storm's analysis is 6 minutes long and Korra's is 5.5 minutes. Could use those 30 seconds to bring up the gigantic fucking pillar to the spirit world that is essential to the fight, guys. I don't care if there's a corner box about there being portals. Even with that, I thought this was just a strange water skyscraper. There are portals to the spirit realm does not immediately and obviously equate to there's a giant fucking pillar to the spirit realm. Speaking of the fight, sure is a fight. Somehow it's 4 minutes long, and despite that, Storm does basically nothing the whole time. I'm going to take this bit by bit, but let's count the amount of things Storm actually does aside from sitting there and blocking attacks. We start with Korra getting bored meditating. I'm told this out of character, but I don't know anything about Korra, nor am I motivated to watch it despite being a fan of Atla. This does fit my view of Korra as a piece of shit arrogant bitch who whines and whines despite her prodigal nature, which is a view that I only got from the parts of the fanbase of Avatar that hate her and describe her in the worst ways possible to demean her, which is not a good way to view her, and it's why I didn't go into this with a predetermined bias against Korra, because I knew that my only way to view her was through the lens of people who hate her. So I wanted to see if this episode could change my mind, and it did not. No. And hey, why don't you, fan of Korra watching this video, go tell me in the comments what's great about her. Engage with the video, please. Korra is somehow surprised when she takes out an iceberg, and then Storm just shows up. Storm talks down to her. Right away I can't help but notice the difference in sprites. Not just that Korra is far less detailed, but also is positioned differently. Storm, being a professionally made sprite, is always kept at a 3/4 angle to the camera, while Korra, when she's attacking, is often directly side on, and that's a little bit distracting at points. It's not too bad, and I'll say why I'm not terribly bothered by this in a moment, but know that sometimes it's a bit distracting where that Korra is completely side on while Storm is 3/4 angled, because when they're together it looks like they're just not positioned right, like relative to one another. Storm shoots some air and goes for a big lightning attack. I guess I can count that as two things. Korra fires off some air and uses an air scooter, then Korra jumps out of the water and throws some piss at Storm, and pause here. Two of my biggest pluses to this animation can be seen in just this general segment. Not only is Korra animated beautifully, very smooth and very clean rigging that's way above the likes of what Zuko had, where all the dynamic motions were done by turning him into a spinning blur, but the effect quality is also a step up, and that's saying something because I actually like the effects in the previous Avatar episodes. This shit is clean. Have it be known, none of my issues with this fight are from the animation quality or effects. They look great. The hand-drawn Korra with a shit-eating grin grabbing Storm by her ankle is amazing as she whips her into the ocean. Storm makes a big water cyclone and shoots some lightning. That counts as two things, sure. Korra comments on Storm's wide variety of elements, which, hallelujah, it's about time. We've had 4 Avatar episodes, and only 2 of them have had the Avatar character bring up the variety of their opponents, and one of those was in an episode when the not-Avatar character wouldn't even be out of place ability-wise, because he only controls one element. Korra throws these cars which... Hold on, what? How are there cars here? This is an icy fucking tundra. Did she carry those cars? Did she drive them? Are there people who drove these cars over the ocean just to drop them here and then leave? Anyway, Korra throws these cars, and I remember saying that I hope they wouldn't just have her toss them, which... I guess she didn't. This is a whole lot less exciting than what I thought they'd do, which would be, I don't know, have Korra wear the cards as a suit of armor to weather some of Storm's attacks. Korra kicks Storm into this big pillar to the spirit world that I didn't know existed, and there's what I hope is an intentionally hilarious bit of Storm bouncing off some rocks. We then get to the scene where... Holy fuck. It's me, Mom. I'm in a death battle. I'm famous and I'm fucking dead. Anyway, so yeah, that happens. That was pretty cool. Pogger's moment to appear beside the Ben Tennyson himself. The actual bit with Storm I'm kind of mixed on. It feels a bit rushed in terms of how it goes down. Storm just sort of hears a few things and lies down and has to push herself. It never feels like anything was stopping her, and I'm just realizing now that this was probably their best attempt to incorporate the claustrophobia element. It's probably the claustrophobia, actually. Yeah, never mind. Storm makes a whirlwind and destroys the cabbages. Okay, please be the last Cabbage Man joke. You've exhausted the depth of this gag. Then again, you decided to once again use a fucking Captain Planet reference. I swear to God, I fucking hate these now. Korra saying "You're no Bender" is unintentionally hilarious to me as an Aussie whose interpretations of Bender in a vacuum is just an alcohol party. Or a derogative term for a homosexual. How ironic. Korra punches Storm in the face and lifts up a chunk of rock, which looks pretty cool, and then slams Storm between 2 chunks. Storm jumps out and gets overwhelmed by wind. There's this fucking hilarious bit where Storm flies out the spirit world, then falcons Korra with a tidal wave. We get maybe the second best shot of the episode where Storm passed the ocean and Korra puts herself in an ice block to protect herself. At least I assume that's what's happening. Storm fires back with ice. Korra activates the Avatar state. No, because not really, because she did that already, so... Wait, what's happening here? Her eyes are glowing here. I assume that was the avatar. Wait, hold. What? So this looks cool, I guess. She drops a good-looking combo on Storm that's meant to make me think that Korra has a chance. Storm gets wrapped up in rocks, which feels like it'd also work for a claustrophobia scene. And then Korra tries to redirect lightning and Storm pops her head and makes her eat shit. It's a pretty nasty kill, all things considered. Oh wait, no. It uses silhouette, automatically not brutal anymore, right? Then Storm flies off and compliments her opponent. What's this? Finally, another episode where the winner doesn't posture, say a quirky one-liner or demean their enemy, but actually compliments them and leaves. Awesome. About fucking time. So let's get back on what Storm did. She fired off some air a few times, made some twisters, shot some lightning and threw a tidal wave, then parted it, and shot a blast of ice. Wow. Riveting. Korra, meanwhile, fires air, makes a scooter out of air, throws water, makes a water whip, wraps Storm in metal, fires blasts of fire, creates an ice barrier to protect herself, and lifts up and crushes Storm under 2 giant chunks of earth, and wraps Storm up in stone. Not only does Korra get to do a lot of things, which is not because she has more variety than Storm, in fact Storm's list of abilities is far more extensive than Korra's, but she also gets to hit Storm with more things. Storm only hits Korra with 1 tidal wave, some wind and lightning. That's all she lands on Korra. Korra punches Storm, hits her with rocks, fire, air, water, metal. Korra lands hits on her in all the possible ways she can aside from energy bending. Storm never plays with magnetic fields or the elements of the sun or the earth, nothing, just wind and lightning. I guess we should note that Storm lands 4 blows in the animation total as well. She wind blasts Korra, she hits her with the tidal wave, she zaps her twice with 1 being the killing blow. Really trying to keep us on our toes for who's gonna win, huh? Geez, I sure was wondering, though I guess there's no real point in wasting our time making us think Korra had a chance. And sucks, because as I said, the actual animation looks phenomenal. There are a lot of really good shots, the effects are great, voice acting is very solid, I just don't think the creative potential was lived up to. Now it's not as creatively brain dead as Lex vs Doom, which just amounted to a lot of bare knuckle brawling with the occasional gadget, or Batman vs Iron Man, which just amounted to a lot of bare knuckle brawling with the occasional suit, and it certainly had a lot of really nice moments, as well as a really solid track to go with it, which maybe the latter episode had too. So while I can't say I actively dislike the episode, because I don't, it does sort of let me down, well, as much as it can given the matchup. All in all, it's hard to say this episode is bad. It's by far the best Avatar episode we've gotten so far. It isn't quite as creatively brain dead as the first 2, it doesn't have the jank of the third, it doesn't have the character assassination of the second, I presume. It doesn't have those 3 episodes' shared inability to make bending interesting. It's overall a solid episode, which just has some flaws in it, but nothing that stands out to bring it down by an overwhelming margin. I can't say I was blown away by it admittedly, but I didn't expect to be. In fact, this feels like an episode where the fight feels a lot shorter than it was, which is probably the thing I expected the least. Though, 250 times more powerful, exatons to gigatons? Nah mate, the gap there is like 25 billion times. Score. I don't know what score to give it. Probably from being generous, a 6 or 7 out of 10. I haven't decided yet, I'll put the one I decide on screen. For an Avatar episode, that's like a 25 out of 10 given their track record. Finally, the curse is broken. And it's not even a Legend of Aaang character. So that was the review, and it was not as fun as you might think to have a review that's all negative. It was interesting going back to Gaara vs Toph and finding I really liked the analysis, and then going back to Aaang vs Edward and finding out I really disliked the analysis when I always thought it was the other way around, but then like, nah, it changed upon rewatch. I did rewatch Zuko vs Todoroki, my opinions on that have not changed. I still think the analysis sucks, and the fight's really janky and bad, and it's just not solid. But this is the best Avatar episode, Korra vs Storm. I'm not surprised. Also, you can go watch Biffweed's review on Korra vs Storm. It's in the description and on the screen right now, probably. I definitely remembered to record. I definitely don't consistently forget to record the part where I say that and have to like add it in. It's definitely always in my script. Definitely. Shut up.